What's going on, guys? This is Josh and Erin from Legendary Life here. We wanted to sit down and have a quick conversation because the other day we were in a little team meeting hanging out, and this topic came up that I thought was super interesting. And it's on the idea of how do you balance, as someone who's into building themselves up, maybe into self development, into self improvement, becoming healthier, just leveling up in life. How do you balance being open minded about different belief systems or different types of lifestyles, getting value where you can get it, while also not falling into gullibility or traps that might lead you down wrong rabbit holes? How do you stay grounded while also seeking, different types of ideas and new ways to improve yourself? So yeah, Erin has a lot to share about that. You want to give kind of a little intro about yourself to kind of set the stage?
Yeah, and excited to talk about this topic. Joined Legendary Life Media as a contributor for health and wellness specifically and mindset. My background is in holistic nutrition, marketing, and yoga and meditation. And so with that comes a lot of different areas and you meet a lot of different people. And through that, you have to be open-minded. And so that's what brought up the topic when we were speaking the other night is when it seems like everything around you can't trust, and even the sources that you do trust, it comes out years later that you can't. How do you stay grounded? How do you use your intuition to help guide that and still live a life that you enjoy and you have, those pleasures, those indulgences? That's what the human experience is all about. And so for me, it really just has been locking into my intuition and using just, life as a balance, and it's an ebb and a flow. And sometimes you need a little more of a holistic, stricter lifestyle, and sometimes it's okay to indulge a little bit. And you also don't know what you don't know. And so staying open-minded to maybe what you're doing now isn't a good fit for what you need in the future, or it's not a right fit for somebody else, because everyone is so different. And I think that's where you really get tricked, or you fall into following the wrong people or the wrong gimmicks or being susceptible, because at the end of the day, we're searching for something when it comes to health and wellness, whether that's preventative, keeping it, getting it, working towards it. And if we see other people that seem to have what we want to do whatever they're saying.
Oh, yeah. And I think another big factor of that, something I love that you said, is how everyone's different and how everyone has their own perspective that's come with their life experience, and they have unique personalities and different that funnels into different interests that they have. And I think one big aspect of, if you're diving into new types of communities or different types of belief systems, or maybe you're following different internet gurus, which I have nothing against. I've learned a lot from, internet gurus. I've also, been victim to some deception when it comes to internet gurus. There's all kinds out there. It's good, bad, and everything. Tying into the idea of everyone's unique, I think a lot of times different trends or fads or just new ideas that come with, I think like holistic health is a really interesting example, because usually they don't come in a vacuum. They kind of come bundled with a bunch of other things, right? Like I want to get into, maybe in my diet, I want to hear bad things about seed oils. And I want to see how seed oils are be affecting me. And then all of a sudden you kind of go down this rabbit hole of these different communities or creators who are like, okay, but if you also have to be, if you want to avoid seed oils, you also have to think that jets are leaving chemtrails that are brainwashing you. And you're like, wait, hold on. That's not what I signed up for. But I think a lot of people, especially if they are the kind of person who's naturally open-minded, that's an awesome strength, because it can help you to discover a lot of new value in ways that you can improve your life or become healthier or become wealthier or whatever your goal is. But I think also one of the common pitfalls or traps that people who are naturally open-minded might fall into is, gullible is a harsh word, but I think they can almost kind of fall into this trance. I've done this before. I'm kind of speaking for myself of I think this idea is cool, but it comes bundled with all these other ideas, seemingly because of the culture of the community around that idea. And you kind of fall into things that might not necessarily be congruent to what you believe in or what your personality is really as a unique person. But do you have any thoughts on that? That was kind of a rant.
Well, no, but it was a good one. And there is so much to say to that. And I think of Kundalini yoga, for example. A lot of the teachers wear turbans when they're practicing. And so outward, you're thinking that has a lot to do with religion. And if I practice this, then I can't be a Christian, or I can't be a Jew, or whatever that religion is to you. And then when you start to kind of unravel, we don't know what we don't know, right? Like the truth behind that has nothing to do with religion. Like it's completely separate. But then if you're an outsider looking in, you don't know. And then the two-folded side is if we're having packages that are bundled together and we want to, just be part of this, but then all this is coming with it, it's learning to use your discernment and not get shiny new object syndrome that, well, I guess if I really want this, I have to take all of this too, because we don't. We have a choice. And so often I think that's where even people who set out with the best of intentions to serve, they can get lost in what they believe is their own truth too, because they have shiny new object syndrome. Like we're always looking for that next new thing, that next new discovery. I mean, we're going to always be discovering and evolving, but it's being mindful to know that nothing's a package deal. No person is a package deal. So how can we sell that or accept that or think that one thing that's right for me is going to be right for you? And I think if we're open to truth, then we're open to hearing like what people have to say and what they're really looking for. And as a practitioner, I think that's where you really hold a lot of space for your clients, and you have to be open to truth and hearing what they have to say back.
Yeah, I'm curious. Those are a lot of really great points. Do you have any practical tips or maybe pieces of advice for, let's say, like two kinds of people, like the kind of person who leans toward being more open-minded and kind of accepts a lot of different ideas and maybe finds themselves kind of lost in the sauce of what those different ideas entail? Maybe some practical tips for like staying grounded and tethered to your own sense of reality and not falling into others as far as that goes. And then also maybe some practical tips or advice for the other end of the spectrum, people who maybe know that they should be exploring other things, but they find themselves being a little hyper skeptical. Like, what would you say as maybe some pieces of advice for those types of people?
Yeah. So maybe for the people that are skeptical, it's to be okay saying no and know that it's okay to try something and listen to yourself and your own intuition. And whenever you're trying that, how are you feeling? Don't listen to how they say that you're supposed to feel. Really dive down into your intuition and say, is this helping? Yes or no? And then, be able to use your voice and share that, because if it's somebody that truly wants to help you, they'll try and think of workarounds, or they'll get creative with you and they'll ask more questions, because they're the professional in that area. So maybe they have something else to share or offer. And so it's being open, but the listening to yourself and your gut, because at the end of the day, we know when we're being sold to, and we know when people are trying to help us. And, sales is a natural cycle of life. Everybody needs that to survive. Money is a tool, but how is that being used? And just being guided from your intuition.
Yeah, I think intuition's really key. And I think kind of something to tie into that is I feel like a lot of people, I can relate to this too, actually have a hard time finding their own intuition in a way. If you've been the kind of person who maybe falls into the category of maybe you've been somewhat of a people pleaser throughout your life, or maybe you grew up in an environment where you felt like you had to feel like the environment was at ease with you before you could feel like you're at ease in the environment. If you kind of fall into more amiable, I would say, like personality type, which there are strengths to as well. But I think if you fall into that personality type, a really key way to stay grounded is to just cultivate a sense of yourself. Really, like I think a lot of times it can be so easy to be preoccupied with how the external is with you that you don't take a real self check or a gut check of what do you actually really resonate with on a deeper level, like in your body, like in your mind, and what are the things that you really resonate with rather than things you felt like you had to match to stay safe. And I think that in itself is actually a thing that you can do through like different types of meditation, different types of holistic practices like yoga. You can do it through prayer. You can do it through all kinds of things that help you become journaling if you want to be like more practical, but like things that you can do to get a better sense of what your own intuition actually is. Because I feel like a lot of people think they know what their own intuition is because they go off of impulse. But when you actually stay with yourself a little longer and you're able to find what you really believe, that was huge for me. That's what really awakened me to understanding what I actually value versus things that values that I borrowed from other people. Right. So you have anything to say about like that process, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. The intuitive process and finding that, because everything is learned traits, whether it's epigenetics, things that we weren't even around to see that were experienced by our ancestors, and it still is, going through our blood, or our parents, our teachers, our friends, our family, everyone. And so if you don't know what you truly want, you just think like, oh, I always wanted to be a lawyer because, that's what I always wanted to be. I can't remember a day I didn't. Well, why? Oh, my parents are lawyers and their parents are lawyers. And it's like, did you really want to be a lawyer? Or did you just not know what you wanted because you didn't even have a chance to experience it? And so I think a big part of finding your intuition is being open to new experiences. And then having that mindfulness to say, like, yeah, that experience was not for me. Or, yeah, I liked this, or I liked a piece of this, so I'm going to do this part, but I'm not going to buy into all the other packages that they have, or I'm not going to believe all the things they believe. I'm going to do it because this feels good to me. And I think it's just, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no. It's not, oh, this kind of, it's like, no, we only have this very present moment. And if we're wasting it on trying to please other people, or maybe we don't know what we want, but are we doing anything to try to figure that out?
Yeah.
Are we making any, conscious decisions to know ourselves and what we like? And then what are we doing with that? And we all have different gifts and strengths. And so then how can we share that? And abundance comes from when we're living in that intuitive knowing with our true self. Because when we're living in that intuitive moment, we're doing what we love. We're in our dharma. We're not worried about how much money we're making. We're worried about the quality of our life. And I think you can't not be intuitive when you're in tune with yourself, because you know exactly what you want and you're not afraid to do what it takes to get there and to get what it is.
Yeah, and I think also another big part of what you said there that I thought was great is like taking something on, not taking something on, or taking a piece of it and taking it with you. And I feel like that's something a lot of people might not even know is possible with certain ideas. Like they feel like they have to go all into every single aspect if they're gonna take something on, but like that hasn't been the case for me. Like I think it's kind of fair to say, like you and I have a lot of similarities. We're both like success oriented people, but I think we also probably have some differences. Like I'm definitely like you do a lot of awesome stuff, like a yoga teacher, like all these different holistic practices. You do a lot of stuff that like people from kind of circles I come from, I consider kind of like this is kind of, intuitive, whatever out there. And to be fair, I'm still the kind of person that still kind of leans toward that like skeptical side when it comes to sort of stuff. Where like, is there really like high vibration, low vibration permeating everything? And do people have these like energies emanating off of them, or do we just have mirror neurons that pick up on behavior? It's like, yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. And I think what's really cool is like I've grown a lot from taking lessons kind of from your side of the world, so to speak. And it's just like where I'm value. It's like there's sometimes I'm like, oh, there actually is something to this. Like there actually is a lot of strength that comes from things like meditation and finding yourself and understanding how the world around us actually does have these four fundamental energies that our minds are able to perceive and also cultivate. At the same time, I've also seen things that I thought were a little bit more on the woo-woo side. And I'm like, you know what, maybe that's real, or maybe that's something someone made up because it's an easy way to sell something. Right? And I think that can go both ways, right? Like there are business owners that I know, like a lot of them are like out of LA or California, but I'm not sure going to be a geo-supremacist. I'm sure they're everywhere. And they'll say things like, oh, like I didn't get a parking spot because I didn't manifest it right? Or it's like I'm gonna try to manifest a better employee or manifest new customers. I'm like, yo, can you just read a marketing book? Like, post an ad or something. It's not everything is this whatever. But I've also met people in kind of my circles, kind of like the hardcore business world, who I can tell are really doing everything in terms of doing right for what they're trying to accomplish, but like you would actually probably find the success that you're looking for if you became detached from it a little bit and found some consciousness in your own being and in yourself. And then a lot of what you seems so hard to grasp would actually come to you naturally if you just kind of were willing to, seek the creator over creation, right? Yeah. And I've definitely found in situations where like both can be the case, where it's like you can still examine another side and just take what's valuable out of it and what corresponds to you, your personality, and get that value. And you don't necessarily need to, accept every single type of potential woo-woo or hyper unconscious or whatever perspective is aspect of those things. And I think that's also a big part of what it means to be a fully developed person, right? Like you're not just a caricature of a certain set of ideas. You're someone who's really processed through different ideas and come to your own understanding of those things and the way to put those things on.
Yeah, and developed your own belief system, and so you don't waver from that. Sometimes there is finding that, and it's like, that's cool, that's somebody's truth. Like, if that's what they believe and that's like, then that is their truth, and that's great. And there's I think too, I love hearing other people's sides of the story because everyone's brain works so differently too. And for me, if we were born in another country, we'd be speaking a different language, we'd have different belief systems too. And so it's all what you've been exposed to. And so what if somebody whose belief you thought was batshit crazy, they start talking and, they emanate, and I do believe like it was that energy, but like they do, like if something draws you to it, then when they start speaking, you're like, you want to hear more. You want them to keep talking about it. If not, you're like, okay, you're watching the clock. You're trying to be like quiet and humble and let them speak their piece, and then just, politely discard that and not take it back up again.
Sure. If there was someone who is just now starting to look at holistic health or wellness or that lifestyle, what would be like the biggest thing you would tell them in terms of, okay, what's the best way to find what's right for you?
Mm-hmm. To look into yourself and see what it is you're trying to find, and just pick one thing, one area of your life, one small bite size that you can take off, and you can make a promise to yourself and be disciplined that, I'm going to give a chance. I'm going to, if it's clear out all of the plastic from my Tupperware cabinets, if it's, I'm going to try this one supplement, I'm going to try not eating gluten. It's just one small thing. And knowing that even if in those circles you're being told all of these other things you need to change, you'll never change if you feel like everything you're doing is wrong. And then you have your defense mechanisms up, your walls up, and it's all going to be new information too. And new information and change is scary. And so if you're scared and you're feeling overwhelmed, and a lot of people feel very passionate when they have different opinions that aren't of the masses. And so then that could feel overwhelming because people think they're trying to help and they feel everything but they're suffocating you. And so it's just pick one small thing that you can do and kind of put the other chatter out of your head from everyone else, and know that only at the end of the day, you know what you're doing for yourself and how you're feeling. And even the people who we think are doing great, we have no clue what they're really doing or how they're feeling behind the scenes. And so, again, to drop into that intuition and know what you can handle, know what you truly need, and ask yourself and pray on it, and whatever you got to do to kind of bring yourself into that knowing, and then make that one small change, set a time limit, and it's holding yourself accountable to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another side to that can close on, this is more of a tip for like the hardcore hustler kind of crowd that I come from that might be watching this, is I don't know if it was said in like Atomic Habits or what book it was by James Clear. It might have been another one, but number one, you can only take on like a small number of new habits on at once. If you're trying to change something about your lifestyle, if you're trying to like change more than one or two things at the same time, it'll be really tough for you and your brain even to solidify like the neural pathways to create that habit if you're trying to juggle more than one or two. And then it also takes a certain amount of time, right? It takes like, I think the number is like 30 days, could be wrong, but I think it's around 30 days for your brain to really cement a new habit. On average, I'm sure there's round up or round down a little bit somewhere in there. But I would say also too, it's like on top of keeping it bite-sized, also understanding that like sometimes for you to get a full grasp of something, it takes a little bit of time. So that's fine. Like be patient with it. If you're not sure exactly if something's helping you in a short amount of time, that's normal. Like give it some time and like really be okay with letting something settle for a bit before you abandon it or embrace it fully. So yeah, awesome. I think sun's starting to set here and we can wrap up, but this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it. Wasn't too much of a debate either. We can get into that next time.
Yeah, I know. We can really go at it next time, I'm sure. But awesome. Take care, guys. This has been Josh and Erin from Legendary Life. Take care.